11:12 p.m. The ground floor of Graham Dynamics headquarters, one of the leading tech companies in the United States, lay quietly under the soft glow of amber lights. The automatic glass doors slid open, and a man in his late 50s stepped inside. He wore a crisp new security uniform with a small embroidered GD logo on the left chest. In one hand, he held a plastic coffee cup from 7-Eleven, and in the other, a weathered notebook with frayed page edges. "Evening, sir," the night receptionist said with a faint smile, eyes never leaving her screen. "Evening," he replied, his voice low, calm, and almost solemn. The name on his badge read Eli G. No one knew that this man was actually Elliot Graham, founder of Graham Dynamics, once featured on the cover of Forbes under the headline, "The Man Who Coded with His Heart." But tonight, that heart wasn't beating under stage lights. It was tucked beneath a security uniform inside a tiny guard booth near the entrance where he now sat. Opened his old notebook and wrote, "Day 1, night shift. No cameras in front of me, only the truth." That night, he didn't do anything else except watch. A young employee rushed through the lobby, clutching a laptop, talking to his girlfriend through AirPods as he ran. An older female engineer exited the elevator with a scowl on her face, dropping a lunch bag straight into the trash without taking a single bite. And in the far corner, inside the ground floor break room, a lone intern sat slumped over a table, his head resting next to a cold, untouched cup of instant noodles. Elliot watched it all through the glass window. He didn't recognize this company anymore, not because the office design had changed, but because the expressions on people's faces had. 1 week earlier, the board of directors meeting on the 12th floor had ended with a round of polite applause and a single sentence that kept Elliot Graham awake the entire night. "We need a new direction. A leader more in tune with the post-AI era." The one who said it was Ava Chen, the new COO, personally recruited by Elliot from a startup he had once invested in. Young, brilliant, fierce, and never afraid to speak plainly. Elliot simply smiled. The kind of smile worn by someone who knows they've just been stabbed with a fruit knife, thin, sharp, and clean. After the meeting, he stepped into the elevator. Before he could press a button, he overheard a conversation behind him. "I thought he retired." "No, he still comes in, but he's like a ghost version of himself." "Yeah, just look at him. Dude clearly has no clue how any of the new AI boards even work." Ghost version A, faded replica. That's how the employees saw him. The founder who once sat in a garage in San Mateo, typing every line of code by hand. That night, Elliot drove loops around the company campus until late. Everyone had gone home. Only the security lights remained on, and the faint hum of an autonomous vacuum echoed down the halls. He pulled over, rolled down the window, and stared at the building glowing under the city's nightlight. The building he once dreamed of now looked more like a high-end startup with no room left for emotion. He unlocked his phone, opened a draft message he'd typed long ago but never sent. "I didn't build this company just to sell it to an algorithm." The next morning, Elliot called HR directly. "I need a file on the night shift security staff." "I'm sorry, sir." "You want to audit the guards?" "No, I want to apply." 3 days later, a man in a security uniform, his face a bit leaner, stubble growing in glasses, swapped for a different frame, entered Graham Dynamics through the side entrance. No one recognized him, No one asked questions. Only the fingerprint scanner did so. He lied and said, "The system must be glitching." He called himself Eli and officially became the silent observer in the dark. What he didn't expect was that the first thing he discovered wasn't lazy employees, wasn't broken equipment. It was the eyes of forgotten people in a company moving too fast to notice who it left behind. Night shift. Day 3. Eli now had started to settle into the rhythm of the late-night hours. No meetings, no emails, no KPIs, only real people. He sat alone in the security booth facing a screen divided into 9 surveillance feeds. But what caught his attention wasn't on camera. 10:41 p.m. Employee. Break room. A young man sat curled up against the refrigerator, holding a cup of noodles. He didn't eat. He just stared at the laptop screen, where a rejection email sat open untouched. Elliot quietly stepped in and gently placed a small bag of peanuts on the table. "It's late, kid." The young man looked up and gave a sheepish smile. "Just a few more lines of code. Then I'm heading out. Mind if I take a look?" Elliot pointed to the screen, his tone warm and friendly. The boy hesitated, then tilted the laptop toward him, an application that analyzed vocal emotion using AI designed to assist people with depression. "I submitted this idea," the intern said, "but management said there wasn't enough data to prove demand." Elliot froze. That was the kind of project his company used to champion. 11:26 p.m., second-floor hallway. An older janitorial staff member accidentally dropped a box of sensor devices. A man in a business suit walked past without looking and muttered under his breath, "Can't even hold on to cheap crap like that." Elliot rushed over to help. She gave an awkward smile. "Thanks, sir." They bent down together to gather the scattered pieces, and that's when Elliot noticed they were prototype emotional sensing chips, the company's flagship product for the coming year. "Cheap crap, huh?" he muttered, then let out a dry, bitter laugh. To 14 a.m. Elevator. The doors opened. A female employee stepped in, eyes puffy from crying. Elliot gave a small nod, then murmured, "People don't usually cry because of work. They cry because of the way the work treats them." She looked up, startled. "You're right," she whispered. The doors closed. Elliot stood still. The red light above the button for the 5th floor blinked softly. That night he wrote in his notebook, "There are no spotlights on the ground floor, but here I see more clearly than ever who really lights up this company." Wednesday night, Elliot decided to go up to the 8th floor R&D. It used to be the creative heaven of Graham Dynamics. Now it had been rebranded as the Innovation Hub, which to him sounded more like a hipster cafe than a place of invention. The problem was, his security badge wouldn't open the door, and Elliot, pridefully in the quiet way only an old-school coder could choose. Plan B, he took the stairs. 10:18 p.m. 8th floor. No sooner had Elliot peeked out from the emergency stairwell than he heard a robotic voice echoing down the corridor, coming from a wheeled security bot. "You do not have access clearance. I will notify human resources." "Wait, I'm just cleaning," Elliot stammered awkwardly, holding a mop to sell the act. But the robot wasn't buying it. "I can perform facial recognition. You are not a janitorial employee. You are off shutdown." Elliot barked, scrambling to find the power button like he was arguing with an old printer. The robot froze, blinked, then started blaring Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal from its built-in speaker, a malfunction mode left in by an engineer years ago just for fun. The entire 8th floor filled with music. As a silver-bearded security guard flailed down the hallway, mop in hand, slipping right in front of the coffee machine. The next day, the footage was pulled from internal security cameras and spread like wildfire on the company's Slack, under the title, "New Guy Dancing in R&D." Like it's 1989, 10:44 p.m. Elevator, 6th floor, still red-faced from the whole Michael Jackson incident. Elliot waited for the elevator to return. That's when he heard a soft click near his foot. Something had fallen out of the coat pocket of the person ahead of him. It was a black USB drive with no label. He picked it up and called out, "Hey, you dropped!" But the person had already stepped into a room and closed the door. Not hearing him, Elliot considered leaving it at the security desk, but something in his gut said otherwise. 12:01 a.m. Security booth. He plugged the USB into his laptop. A folder popped up. Project Phoenix Confidential. He opened it. Inside were dozens of files, plans for a corporate merger, restructuring strategies, risk assessments for replacing the current executive team. On the last page, a name stood out in bold, Graham Phase Out Plan. Elliot stared at the screen. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. That night, he didn't write anything in his notebook. He simply closed the laptop and stared out the glass window. The golden glow of the street lamp lit up his face, a face shifting by the second as if Elliot Graham had finally woken up from a dream he himself had built. The next morning, Elliot inserted the USB into his personal laptop in the garage at home. Each file that opened felt like a slap to the back of his neck. Phoenix Phase 2. Proposal to remove the existing executive board, including Elliot Graham, due to lack of alignment with AI-first direction. At the bottom of the proposal was a signature, signed Ava Chen, COO, and next to it in smaller font, a strategic advisory note. Approved by J. Rivera Elliot, sat in silence. Jude Rivera, his first partner, the co-founder of Graham Dynamics, the man he had invited into his home for Thanksgiving 12 years in a row. He was the one who once said, "I write code for us, not for Wall Street." And yet now, his name sat right next to the words, "Phase Out." That evening, employee cafeteria Elliot, still in his security uniform, walked in. As usual, Jude was there, sandwich in hand, laughing with a group of mid-level managers. Elliot passed by. Their eyes met. Jude didn't recognize him. He just offered a polite smile. "Night shift." "Huh, buddy? Take care? We're talking big things over here." Elliot nodded. "Yeah, real big things." He turned left, heading into the supply room, but his hand was clenched into a fist. 11:51 p.m. Stairwell. 4th floor. Elliot flipped through the printed documents from the Phoenix folder. Then he stopped staring at a confidential internal memo that hit him like a punch to the gut. Objective: accelerate digital transformation by removing unquantifiable emotional factors. Legacy values should be eliminated, Elliot included if necessary. Legacy. Just 3 years ago, that word had been the title of the keynote speech he gave at Harvard. Now it was being used like a liability. 1:03 a.m. Security booth. Elliot wrote in his notebook, "I used to think the worst thing was being underestimated. But it turns out the worst thing is being treated like a junk file in a system someone wants to clean out." The next day, he watched Jude from a distance, chatting on the phone with Ave in the main lobby. They laughed, they shook hands, and they had no idea that the man in the security uniform just 10 meters away knew everything. Elliot sat alone in the security booth. Friday night. The coffee had gone cold. Streetlight poured through the glass, streaking across his aging hands like fading memories. He turned the USB drive over in his palm. One detail made him pause. A hidden folder named Archive/00, encrypted. No one else could open it because he himself had written the encryption key nearly 20 years ago, 1:44 a.m., on an old laptop. One line of code appeared slowly, like the heartbeat of an aging man. Function: Graham Legacy. Return. You can't delete what built the system. The folder opened. Inside were the original core code files, the very foundation of the first AI system Graham Dynamics had ever built. Author E. Graham digital signature, verified, valid, irremovable. But that wasn't the most shocking part. At the bottom of the folder, he found an internal email sent by Jude to Ava, along with a note that read, "Make sure to erase all traces of Elliot's old code from the system before launching Project Phoenix." No one can find out if it's the underlying framework. Elliot didn't say a word, not because he was shocked, but because the pain was of a different kind, slower, deeper. The friend who once stood beside him didn't just want to replace him, he wanted to erase everything he ever built. Notebook. For the first time, Elliot wrote with a firmer stroke than usual. They don't just want the chair. They want to sit in it, as if I was never there. The next morning, Lobby Jude walked past the security booth, smiling at him like always. Elliot nodded back without a word, but in his hand, he was already placing the USB into a small box. On it, he taped a handwritten note. "Legacy isn't decoration. It's the foundation, Eli." He left the box on the tech department's desk and walked away. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but the wind had changed. Monday, Maine. Lobby Graham Dynamics, the future strategy. Town hall was underway. The entire executive board was present with hundreds of employees attending in person and through the company live stream. The stage lights beamed bright. Ava Chen stood center stage, her voice smooth and precise, like a high-end AI assistant. "We're stepping into a new chapter, a time with no limits where AI replaces emotion and speed matters more than history." The audience applauded. The lights dimmed. She raised her hand and pointed toward the massive LED screen behind her. "And now, let's watch the official demo of Project Phoenix, the initiative that will redefine Graham Dynamics." She pressed the button. But the video didn't play. Instead, a black screen appeared with a single familiar line in stark white text, cold in its simplicity. "You can't delete what built the system." The entire room fell silent. Then a deep voice echoed from the back of the hall. "Thank you for saving me a seat, but I'll stand. Because today, I speak for those who've been left standing on the outside." Everyone turned. A man in a security uniform was walking toward the stage. Ava went pale. Jude froze in place. Elliot Graham, the founder of the company, was standing before them holding a USB drive. "Good evening, everyone. I probably look a little different. A week without shaving. No tie. But more than that, It's been a week of watching. His voice was deep, slow but sharp, like a scalpel. I've heard things you didn't dare say in daylight. I've seen who stays working until 2 a.m. without ever being acknowledged. And I've read every line of code in Project Phoenix, including the part stolen from a program I wrote in 2002. A ripple of whispers spread across the hall. Jude stepped forward, trying to keep his composure. Elliot, this is a misunderstanding. Phoenix is just a plan to remove me from the very company I built. Elliot cut in, raising the USB toward the projector. Or is it a plan to erase all traces of my work, just so it's easier to call it Next-Gen AI by the new team? The screen lit up, displaying an internal email exchange between Jude and Ava. No one said a word. Elliot turned his gaze to the front row where the younger team sat, stunned and silent. I'm not here to cling to a chair. I'm here to remind you all, technology, without people, is just cold metal. And a company without memory has no soul. Then he turned and walked off the stage.